What if one sentence, just one, could live rent-free in someone's mind for years? What if instead of yelling, instead of chasing, instead of trying to make them understand, you said something so calm, so simple, so unexpected, it didn't just close the door, it locked it forever? What if there was a message so quietly powerful, it didn't break them right away, but showed up later, when their new life wasn't enough, when their smile didn't reach their eyes, when they couldn't find peace in the very things they once chose over you? What if you didn't need to explain anymore? What if you didn't need to send essays, or pour your heart out again, or beg someone to finally value what you gave for free? What if the most powerful thing you could do was say something that sounds kind, almost gentle, but underneath it, it's a scar, a calm, cold scar. The kind they don't see right away. The kind that opens later when you're gone, when it's too late. And it doesn't say, "You hurt me." It says, "I see clearly now, and you're no longer my problem to fix." Well, my friends, that message exists. And today, we're going to break it down piece by piece, because most people think closure comes from conversations, from hearing "I'm sorry," from knowing they finally understood. But real closure, Stoic closure, it comes from truth, calm truth, delivered with clarity, not emotion. And today, you'll hear the kind of message that doesn't beg for a reaction. It creates reflection, not today. Maybe not even tomorrow, but someday, when their distractions can't save them, when their pride starts to crack, when life humbles them, they'll remember. And it'll echo, because you didn't scream, you didn't throw guilt, you didn't play the victim, you simply accepted the truth and delivered it in one final line. "I accepted. You deserve someone much better." That's it. It sounds mature. It sounds kind. It sounds polite, but underneath it, oh, it burns, because it's not you trying to get them back, it's you letting them go, with dignity, and that's what shakes them. It doesn't sound like heartbreak, it sounds like peace, and peace, when they expected drama, becomes the punishment. That one sentence haunts them because it forces questions they never wanted to face. Wait, what did they mean by that? Was I not good enough? Did I mess this up? Are they really done? They'll think about it when they're driving, in the middle of a fake smile, in the arms of someone who doesn't understand them the way you did. Because that line didn't say you were angry. It said you were done. It said you outgrew what they refused to grow into. That's Stoicism. You didn't lash out. You didn't try to teach them a lesson. You just stepped out of the classroom and left the test on the desk. Let them figure it out. And believe me, they will, eventually. Because they'll learn that some people don't slam doors when they leave. Some people walk away so quietly you don't notice until the silence screams louder than anything they ever said. So stay with me, folks. Today's message is about clarity, not chaos, power, not pain, and truth, not chasing. This sentence is going to change how you see regret forever. Not your regret, theirs. This is your turning point. From reaction to reflection, from begging to becoming, from confusion to calm. Write this in the comments right now. I accepted it. That's your new armor. That's your release. Press the like button if you feel this already. Hit subscribe so you never chase closure again. And stay with me because we're just getting started. Number 1. The scar that opens when silence speaks. What if the scar doesn't show up right away? What if it takes weeks, months, even years to bleed? Not the kind of scar that makes them cry in the moment, but the kind that creeps in late at night when no one's texting back, when the room is quiet and their soul starts whispering truths their ego can no longer protect them from. That's the kind of scar we're talking about. The one that opens when silence speaks. The one that begins with a message so calm, so nice, so deceptively light that they didn't even feel it hit until the damage had already been done. I accepted. You deserve someone much better. That's what you said. Not bitter, not broken, just clear, detached, honest. And the moment they read it, they probably smirked. Maybe they thought, oh, they're being kind. Maybe they even rolled their eyes, assuming you were bluffing. That's the thing about emotionally avoidant people. They only register the blow after the storm passes. They don't feel the cut until they realize no one's stitching them back up anymore. Because that sentence, it isn't weakness, it isn't surrender, it's the most silent form of power there is. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't try to flip the story. It just ends the conversation in a way that makes them feel like they missed something they won't be able to replace. Let's be real. At first glance, it sounds like a compliment. It sounds like you're lifting them up, like you're saying they deserve better than you. But folks, read between the lines. What you're really saying is, you couldn't meet me at my level, and I've outgrown this game. What you're really doing is handing them a goodbye, so polite, so final, so composed. They can't even argue with it. And that's what makes it hurt more. Because how do you fight someone who's already accepted everything? Think of it like this. You've been standing in the fire with them, burning, waiting, hoping they'd throw water, but instead they added gasoline. And now, instead of screaming for help, you calmly walk out of the flames, brush off the ash, and say, "It's okay, this fire was never mine to put out." That's what this sentence does. It exits the chaos with class and leaves them standing in the smoke, confused because they expected a fight. They didn't expect peace. But peace, my friends, is louder than any war, and when that message sits in their inbox, unread for days, or when they open it again, hoping to find more emotion, more explanation, all they get is that one sentence, nothing else. And it starts to eat at them, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say. There was no begging, no "please come back," just a calm truth. I accepted. You deserve someone much better. So why does this scar open slowly? Because it doesn't activate their pride right away. It slips beneath it. It bypasses their defense systems. It feels harmless until they realize they were just dismissed. Not in anger, but in grace. And being dismissed gracefully. That's worse than being yelled at, because it means the door wasn't slammed shut. It was simply locked forever from the inside, without noise, without drama. They'll start wondering, was I really not enough? Did they already find someone better? Did they stop caring before I even noticed? And those thoughts, that's what makes this scar bleed. Quietly, slowly, deeply. This sentence isn't revenge, it's release. It's walking away so calmly, so gracefully, that your absence feels louder than any argument could. You didn't break them. You let them see they were never ready to receive what you were giving. And now, they have to live with the silence. Write this in the comments, folks. My silence became my power. Number 2, not a goodbye, but a mirror. They thought they won. Let's be honest, folks. When you didn't fight back, when you didn't beg for one last conversation, when you sent that message and fell silent, they thought it was over. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought you had finally matured and accepted they had moved on. But what they didn't realize is this wasn't a goodbye. It was a mirror. A very specific, very sharp mirror. And it wasn't placed in front of them, it was placed inside them. You didn't send that message to get closure. You sent it to give them a reflection they can't look away from. Because when you said, "I accepted, you deserve someone much better," you didn't fight, you didn't attack, you accepted. And acceptance, my friends, is not weakness, it's power, real Stoic power. The kind that doesn't need applause or reaction. It just walks away and lets the other person sit with themselves. And now they are. And now it's starting to hurt. Because at first glance, that line sounds graceful. It sounds like you're wishing them well. But then it starts to eat at them. Slowly, quietly, deeply. Because the truth underneath that line is simple. You were not enough for the version of me I became. You see, people don't regret losing someone right away. They regret it when they finally realize what that person actually gave. And your message didn't tell them. It showed them, calmly, indirectly. And that's why it's powerful. Because they thought they had the control. But now, they're left holding questions and no answers. Wait. What did they mean by that? Was I the problem? Did they really let go? And then the deeper ones. Do I actually deserve better? Or did I just waste something sacred? These are not questions they'll ask out loud, but they'll think them. Trust me, they'll think them every day. That sentence flipped the emotional weight because they thought they were rejecting you. But now, they feel like the ones who got dismissed, politely, silently, with nothing to hold on to. And that's what breaks people, my friends. When you leave the table before they're full. When you stop serving loyalty to someone who expected a second helping of your patience. They expected a fight. Instead, they got a farewell wrapped in elegance and dipped in undeniable truth. And let me be very clear, this is not about ego. This is not about proving you're better. This is about acceptance, real soul-level acceptance. The kind that says, I now see this clearly, and I don't need to defend myself anymore. Because the moment you stop needing to be understood by someone who chose not to understand you, that's when your power comes back. That's when the emotional contract breaks, and that's when they start to feel the sting, not of your words, but of your absence. Now they're stuck in their own loop, wondering, overthinking, trying to decode a sentence that doesn't need decoding, trying to rewind a story that already ended. And that's the genius of what you said, because you didn't say it to manipulate, you said it to let go. But when someone has a guilty conscience, even peace sounds like punishment. That's the real power of the mirror. It doesn't yell, it doesn't argue, it just reflects. And reflection, folks, is what makes people uncomfortable, because it shows what their ego tries to hide. So let me ask you this. Are you still trying to be heard by someone who doesn't even hear themselves? Are you still trying to get closure from someone who never gave you clarity? Or are you ready to hold the mirror up? Quietly, calmly, confidently, and walk away knowing they'll eventually see what they lost. In their own time, in their own mind. Write this in the comments. I gave them the mirror. That's your line. That's your strength. Number 3, worded like closure, designed like karma. It sounded peaceful, didn't it? That one sentence you sent, I accepted. You deserve someone much better. No bitterness, no blame, just calm acceptance. On the surface, it looked like closure, like you were letting them off the hook, like you'd finally moved on. But that's the trick, my friends. That's the beauty. Because while it looked like a peaceful goodbye, it was actually a perfectly placed dose of accountability, not the loud kind. Not the kind that points fingers and demands apologies. No, the kind that arrives in silence and leaves them alone with their conscience. See, real karma doesn't need chaos. Real karma sounds like clarity, and clarity is quiet. Stoics don't go looking to punish those who mistreated us. We don't play emotional chess. We don't try to get even. We let the truth do the heavy lifting. We speak once, and the echo handles the rest. Because when someone receives a message that doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't ask for closure, it forces them to sit with something far more painful than anger. It forces them to sit with themselves. And that's what you gave them, the gift of walking away, not in flames, not in a storm, but with composure, with calm, with grace. And now they're holding something they didn't expect: guilt. It wasn't immediate. Guilt never is. It's slow. It's subtle. It builds in quiet places, in the middle of a conversation with someone new, in the pause between laughs, in the late-night scrolling where your name still lives in their phone, and your final words still hang in the air like unfinished business. That's karma. Not because you forced it, but because you released it. They thought you would fight, that you'd lose your cool, that you'd do what they've seen others do: scream, beg, spiral. But you didn't. You walked away with a message that said, "I've made peace." But peace isn't always peace for both people. Sometimes peace for you is punishment for them, because now they can't play the victim. Now they can't point and say they were crazy. No, you were calm, you were measured, you were done. And that's what makes them spiral, not your emotions, your evolution. They didn't expect that, and now the story they tried to tell themselves doesn't hold up. She was too emotional. Really? Then why did she walk away so still? He was obsessed, was he? Because that message didn't sound obsessed. It sounded whole. It sounded complete. It sounded like someone who finally realized you can't love someone into loving you back. And that's what Stoicism teaches us, folks. We don't fight to be heard. We don't argue to be right. We let the truth land where it lands, and we let time do what time does best: reveal. Because when you're on the side of truth, you don't need to push the narrative. You just stand still, and everything false eventually collapses under its own weight. Now they're left wondering, was it all really love? Or was it just convenience? Was I really the one in control? Or did I just lose someone I'll never replace? These are questions they never wanted to ask. But now, they can't escape them, because you didn't give them a scene. You gave them a sentence, and that sentence was a turning point, not just for you, but for them too. So remember this: you didn't send that message to hurt them. You sent it to heal yourself. But healing has side effects, and one of those side effects is watching people drown in the truth you no longer carry. That's not revenge. That's reality. Write this in the comments. Truth did the work. That's your power. That's your protection. Number 4. The sentence that shatters their delusion. They told themselves a story, over and over. They convinced themselves you were the lucky one, that you were the emotional one, the needy one, the one who stayed too long, gave too much, felt too deeply. They wore that story like armor. It made them feel powerful, made them feel untouchable, and as long as you stayed quiet, as long as you didn't push back, they thought the narrative was safe. But then you sent that one message, that calm, collected line that changed the entire meaning of the story they kept telling themselves. I accepted. You deserve someone much better. At first, it sounded like closure. At first, they thought you were finally admitting defeat. But something about it didn't sit right. Something about the tone, the timing, the stillness. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like growth. And now they're realizing they weren't chosen. They were tolerated. They weren't adored. They were entertained. They weren't the prize. You were just too loyal to let go. Until now. This is the moment their delusion starts to crack. Because that sentence doesn't come from a place of weakness. It comes from awakening. It doesn't say, I couldn't handle you. It says, I saw the truth and I walked. It doesn't beg. It doesn't burn. It just ends the illusion. And once that illusion shatters, so does their comfort. Because the lie they've been living on no longer feeds them. They thought they had the upper hand, thought you'd always be there, thought they were the ones setting the terms. But now they're left with questions, uncomfortable questions, the kind that don't go away when the music's playing or the room is full. Questions that show up in the quiet. Wait, were they outgrowing me the whole time? Was I really that blind? Did I mistake loyalty for weakness? That sentence didn't just shift the story. It exposed their arrogance, and that's a truth the ego can't sit with. Because here's the kicker, you didn't say it with bitterness. You didn't send it at 2 a.m. during a breakdown. You didn't post it online for attention. You said it with calm, with control, with a tone that whispered, this isn't a reaction. This is a realization. And that's what hurts more. Not the words themselves, but the fact that you're not angry anymore. The fact that you don't need an apology. The fact that you're not asking them to come back. You're just done. And that, my friends, is what shatters the delusion. Because as long as someone thinks you're emotional, they can avoid accountability. As long as they think you're reactive, they can paint you as unstable. But when you stop explaining, when you stop proving, when you stop fighting, you become undeniable, and your peace becomes their discomfort. They won't tell anyone, they'll pretend it didn't matter, but they'll feel it every time someone else doesn't love them the way you did, every time they try to retell the story, but the ending won't fit anymore, because now they know they didn't walk away from something broken. They walked away from someone whole, someone who saw too much, someone who loved too deeply, and someone who finally decided that being tolerated is not the same as being valued. You didn't leave to hurt them, you left to heal yourself, but in doing so, you exposed something they were never ready to face. You were never beneath them, you were beyond them, and they never even noticed. Write this in the comments. I outgrew the illusion. That's your truth. That's your freedom. Number 5. Jung's Law. The return of the repressed. Carl Jung once said, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. And folks, that's not just psychology, that's reality. You see, when someone does you wrong, when they betray your loyalty, underestimate your presence, or throw away the very thing they secretly depended on, they don't deal with that truth. Not at first. The ego won't allow it. So what do? They repress it. They bury it. They distract themselves with new people, louder rooms, faster lives. But what Carl Jung knew, and what life always proves, is that the repressed always returns. And that one message you sent, the quiet one, the peaceful one, I accepted, you deserve someone much better. They might have read it and shrugged, might have smiled, convinced themselves you were finally giving up. But the psyche doesn't forget truth. It just delays its confrontation, and that message becomes a seed planted in the deepest part of their subconscious. It waits, it grows, it matures while they pretend they're fine. Then one day they wake up and they can't run from it anymore. It might be months from now, it might be years, but trust this, they'll remember. Not because you forced them to, but because they'll start to notice a pattern. Every new person they try to love feels shallow. Every new situation feels familiar but hollow, and one night, in the middle of all that pretending, they'll remember. Someone once saw me, someone once believed in me, someone loved me fully, and I ruined it. That's the return of the repressed, and it doesn't show up like guilt, it shows up like longing, it shows up in the form of what if. It shows up when they see your name in their old messages, when they catch a scent, hear a song, or get asked about the one that got away. And suddenly, the truth floods back. They didn't lose you because they were confused. They lost you because they were selfish. They lost you because you matured and they stagnated. And the worst part? You left without needing closure, without needing them to explain. You just walked. That's what makes it hurt more, because people expect the ones they hurt to come back, to need something, to fight one last time. But when you walk away calmly, with clarity, they never get the chance to defend themselves. They're left alone, not just with your absence, but with your silence. And your silence becomes the sound of self-reflection. That's the beauty of it. You didn't chase karma, you became it. Folks, let me be real with you. You cannot convince someone to value what their ego has convinced them to reject. But life will. Life has a way of replaying the test until the lesson is learned. And while they're out there thinking they've upgraded, thinking they've moved on, the truth is chasing them, slowly, invisibly, constantly. That message is no longer just a sentence. It's a mirror that follows them, and every time they try to love again, that mirror shows up. They won't tell anyone. They'll hide it behind jokes and fake smiles. But deep down, they'll know. You were real, you were rare, and you were gone before they ever realized what you were worth. That's not revenge. That's the return of the repressed. Their subconscious knows the truth, even when their pride refuses to say it out loud. So don't you dare regret what you said. Don't you doubt your calm. You planted a truth so deep, even they couldn't bury it. And it's only a matter of time before that seed grows into something they can no longer ignore. Write this in the comments. They'll remember in silence. That's your legacy. That's your light. Number 6. The message that rewrites their narrative. Every story needs a villain, and when people hurt you, when they ghost you, betray you, or slowly chip away at your self-worth, they often rewrite the narrative to protect their ego. In their version, you were too much, too emotional, too intense, too available. They had to distance themselves. They had to protect their peace. And so they make you the villain just to avoid looking in the mirror. But then you sent that one message: I accepted. You deserve someone much better. And just like that, the whole story fell apart. Because that line doesn't sound like a villain. It doesn't sound needy. It doesn't sound bitter. It sounds complete. And now their narrative has no legs. You didn't spiral. You didn't chase. You didn't beg to be seen. You released. And that changes everything. Because suddenly they're not the victim of your emotions. They're the one who got let go by someone calm, clear, and in control. Now they're sitting with a different story, one they didn't prepare for, one where you were not the one falling apart. You were the one waking up. And let me tell you something, folks, that's when the regret kicks in. Not when you leave with anger, not when you block them mid-argument, but when you say with grace, I've accepted it. You were never meant to grow with me. That's the kind of line they replay over and over, because it's not loud enough to ignore. It's quiet enough to echo. And the beauty of that sentence is this: it doesn't accuse, it doesn't demand closure, it doesn't even ask for understanding. It just detaches fully, emotionally, spiritually. And when someone's used to controlling the narrative, used to being the one who walks away, that sentence is terrifying, because now they have to admit the truth they've avoided the entire time. They weren't rejected, they were released. And that hits different, because being rejected means they had no choice. But being released, that means you saw them clearly and still chose to leave. They'll wrestle with that idea for a long time because it flips the script. Suddenly, you're not the crazy ex. You're not the emotional mess. You're the one who matured beyond the connection. And the longer they sit with that, the more they realize you were never beneath them. They were just too afraid to rise with you. This is what Stoicism looks like. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about honoring yourself. And when you honor yourself, folks, you no longer beg for love that doesn't match your depth. You no longer fight for space in someone's life when they've shown you they don't know how to hold you. You walk calmly, and in doing so, you rewrite the ending they thought they controlled. Because here's the secret, they can tell whatever story they want out loud, but when they lay their head on the pillow at night, when the lights are off and the crowd is gone, they know the truth. They know who really let go, they know who showed up with love, and they know who couldn't meet it. So don't waste another second trying to correct their story. The truth always finds its way back, and now, every time they try to retell the past, your message will be standing in the middle of their memory, calm and unshakable, whispering, "I didn't lose you. I let you go." Write this in the comments. I rewrote the ending. Because you did, and you did it without rage, without fear. Number 7. The mind can't heal what the ego hides. The mind is a master at hiding pain it doesn't want to deal with. And the ego? It's the gatekeeper. It filters reality so they don't have to feel the full weight of what they've done. It says things like, "She was too sensitive. He was too clingy. They weren't ready for someone like me." It wraps guilt in excuses and buries regret under self-righteousness. That's how they move on, by pretending they didn't mess up. But then, you sent that message. Calm, clean, no blame. I accepted. You deserve someone much better. And just like that, you bypassed the ego and went straight to the subconscious. That's what they didn't expect. You see, if you had attacked them, they would have felt justified. If you'd cursed them out, they would have called you dramatic. If you sent a long paragraph begging for answers, they would have felt powerful. But you didn't. You said something so polite, so collected, so mature, it caught their defenses off guard. The ego didn't have time to raise the shield, and that's why it haunts them. Because your message didn't come to argue, it came to echo. Now they're left with a line that doesn't scream, but lingers. It lives in their head, popping up when they're doing the most ordinary things, driving, showering, watching a show. And each time, it hits a little harder, because that sentence didn't tell them what they did wrong. It told them, you're no longer asking for right. And that, folks, is what starts to crack the shell around their ego. They'll try to brush it off. They'll tell themselves you didn't mean it. They'll convince themselves you're just playing nice. But deep down, they'll know the truth. They'll feel it. And that's the part they can't explain to anyone else. Because it doesn't sound like heartbreak. It sounds like closure. But it feels like shame. And shame is what the ego tries to run from the most. Because this sentence was too polite, too still. It didn't come from someone spiraling. It came from someone who already made peace. And when peace walks into the room where guilt lives, it rearranges the furniture. Now they can't look at the past the same way. Now the story they told their friends doesn't feel honest anymore. Now they wonder if they were the ones who fumbled something irreplaceable. And that's the power of silence wrapped in truth. It's not loud enough to defend against. It just slips in and stays there. Stoicism teaches us that we don't need to force understanding. We don't need to chase validation. When you operate from truth, truth travels farther than any argument ever could. And now your message is doing the work for you. Quietly, efficiently, repeatedly. They don't even realize it at first, but over time, they start to feel uneasy. Something's off. They think of you in moments they shouldn't. They compare others to you when they swore they moved on. That's not nostalgia. That's repressed guilt waking up. That's the mind trying to heal what the ego has been hiding. And now your sentence is the trigger. You didn't say it to haunt them. You said it to heal yourself. But the thing about real healing is, it leaves behind energy. And your energy was never chaotic. It was kind. And that kindness, it's what stings now. Because you were kind. In a moment they expected anger. You were composed in a moment they expected collapse. And now their mind has nowhere to run. Because you didn't come for revenge. You came with release. Write this in the comments. My peace shook them. That's your superpower. That's your legacy. Number 8. You sent it, then disappeared. You sent the message, and then you vanished. No follow-up, no checking in, no "did you read it?" no double texts. You didn't wait for a response. You didn't leave the door cracked open. You hit send, and then you disappeared like mist at sunrise. And that, my friends, was the knockout, not the words themselves, but what came after. Nothing. No closure conversation, no delayed drama, just a single moment of clarity, followed by your absence. Because the message you sent, "I accepted, you deserve someone much better," wasn't a question. It didn't leave room for a reply. It wasn't fishing for validation or hoping for regret. It was a conclusion, a period. And that's what hits the hardest, because people are used to others who need closure, who send a second message, who backtrack when they get scared. But not you. You said your truth, and you walked. And now they don't just miss you. They miss the opportunity to ever speak again. You see, when someone still believes they have access to you, they sleep easy. They assume they can circle back later, hit you up when they're bored, when life humbles them, when their new connection doesn't satisfy them the way you did. But when you disappear, when you remove your energy completely, that's when panic sets in, because now they're not wondering what you meant. They're wondering if you're ever coming back. And the more time that passes, the louder your silence becomes. They'll check your profile, scroll through your last scene, reread your final message, looking for hidden meanings. But deep down, they know it wasn't a breadcrumb. It wasn't bait. It was a boundary. You didn't send it with hope. You sent it with finality. You weren't leaving the door open for interpretation. You were walking away with your dignity and letting the truth echo in your place. And here's what makes it worse for them. They didn't expect this version of you, the version that doesn't chase, the version that doesn't justify, the version that doesn't wait around, hoping for a shift. You became what they never believed you could be, untouchable, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And now they're left with a message they can't unsee and a silence they can't escape. That's the part they never prepared for. They thought they had time. They thought you'd always be there in some way, orbiting, waiting, watching. But you didn't orbit. You evaporated. And what's left behind is not a person desperately trying to be understood. It's a memory wrapped in mystery. They can't reach you, can't explain themselves, can't rewrite the past. All they have is that final sentence and 1,000 moments where they wish they'd treated you better. And let's be real, your absence is louder than anything you could have said, because you didn't burn the bridge. You made it disappear, quietly, smoothly, without a scene, and that leaves them with nothing to push against. No drama to distract them, just the hollow realization that they were handed something rare. And now it's gone. That's the Stoic way. We don't retaliate, we don't perform, we remove our presence, and we let time do what it always does, reveal what was real. You didn't need revenge, you didn't need them to beg, you just needed peace. And once you found it, you never looked back. So let me leave you with this. Your final message wasn't just a goodbye. It was a mirror, a scar, and a legacy. You didn't send it to be heard. You sent it to be remembered. And when you disappeared, your silence did the talking. If this spoke to something deep in you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their peace, and subscribe for more grounded Stoic truth every week. Drop this in the comments to seal your power. I walked away with grace. Because you did. And now, your echo lives where you don't.